All right, you're listening to The World According to Rocky, and I am your host, Rocky Miller. I have a very special guest today. We have the WISD school board candidate in the building, Hope Balfa-Mustakim.
You got it. That's good. You got it.
So we're gonna have a lively conversation today.
For sure.
We're gonna talk about why you're here, which is to spread the word about your candidacy for school board. However, let's get to know you first.
Yeah.
So, are you originally from Waco?
I'm not. I've been here for 10 years, but.
So no one, very few people I've had on my podcast so far. This is our 15th episode, and about 2/3 of the people aren't from Waco. So can you give us the story of how you got here?
Sure. So I'm from South Louisiana, Cajun girl. I was 21 years old whenever I left, and my family, it was as if I was the black sheep. I betrayed all of them. How dare you leave? So I'm from Lafayette, and I came to Houston for a college ministry there. My youth pastors were like, we're going to Houston, come with us. And I came to Houston. I started out in community college there because I never thought college was for me. I was in retail. I was like, I'm going to find a way.
My teachers thought that too.
Yeah, I was like, I'm going to find a way to make money, move up the ladder without having to go to school. It just, I didn't learn the same way my peers learned. I was ADD and just didn't stop talking, couldn't sit still, and just learned in abstract ways. And, our normal classrooms aren't suited for that. So I was like, well, shoot, I'm not going to college because if I don't do well in the school setting, college isn't for me. I had some colleagues, some friends who started out community college. And I said, well, you know what? If these cats can do it, maybe I can try. Maybe I can do it. So I started out at Lone Star Community College in Houston. I wanted to be an English teacher, 7th grade, 8th grade English teacher. Started out in secondary education, stayed there for about 2 years, and I decided to do a summer internship, and a friend suggested Mission Waco. She said, I went there, it changed my life. She said, you should go there, you're only a few hours away. So I came to Waco for a summer internship, and Mission Waco, just the whole environment of faith into practice, serving the community in a way that is really attentive and listening to the community's needs and just giving honor and dignity to every person. It was the first time I had seen faith integrated with service in that kind of way. So Waco sucked me in. I loved the size of the town. I loved that we didn't have traffic like Houston. I loved the good heart of a lot of people I met. So I transferred into Baylor. I was like, I'll cross my fingers and see if they take me. The transfer process is a lot easier than normal.
Really?
So I came in as a transfer. People will see that I have a bachelor's and a master's from Baylor. They don't know I never took an ACT test. I took a placement test in community college.
And transferred
in.
And got accepted to Baylor.
Yeah, because I had a 4.0 in Lone Star College. I had a 4.0 because in community college, it was, you set up the schedule the way that it suited you. The classroom setting was so different than a normal school setting. You got to pick classes that appealed to you and where you wanted to go in life, kind of like vocational training, that kind of thing. So I was just in it. I was so interested in college. And so I came here with a 4.0, got a few scholarships, not the whole thing. And then it took me 10 years, but I finished my bachelor's and my master's and had 2 kids in the middle of it, all that.
Well, that's a tremendous accomplishment, completing your bachelor's and your master's, and you should be commended for that. That goes to show that you do value education in your own life. And how would you say being education impacted you in your life?
I would say mostly because when I transferred here, I switched to social work. I'd met a few amazing social workers in Waco and realized that the reasons why I thought I wanted to teach were actually the reasons why I should be a social worker. So I wanted to get to know students and families. I wanted to help connect families with resources because I was usually very resourceful, problem solver, solution-oriented, just thinking out of the box was my forte. And so I was like, well, I want to be in the schools and I want to help families that way to make sure kids can succeed. And I said, well, maybe I'm not going to have that much time as a teacher to do those sort of things. So maybe I should be a school social worker. So transferred into Baylor. Our school of social work here is excellent. And I value my education there so much because it was centered in Waco, and I learned how to base these solutions or these ideas or change off of an assessment first. First, you don't jump in straight out of the gate saying, I've got all the ideas, and this is how we're going to do it, and this is
and
great,
and
all the answers. But no, we paused, and we did. That's where I met Keith Guillory, actually, the other candidate for at-large. I was doing an asset map at Carver Middle School. in 2016 and pulled together a group of parents, teachers, students to say, hey, what are the assets in this neighborhood? Not where are the deficiencies, what are the gaps in services? Normally that's very social worky, but I said, what do y'all love about your community? What are the strengths? And so Keith was part of that circle. And so just looking at a community and hearing, what do you find that's beautiful about it? What do you find that are your strengths? And then you build off of that. So that's where the whole community engagement thing comes from, is like we have community partners, community members, awesome parents, and students. So let's view them as assets. They are our strengths, and then we may need to support some of that, but I don't view students and parents and teachers as a nuisance or that their needs are like inconvenient. I was like, no, okay, let's support our people and then watch them grow.
So you have an interesting view of most people view schools from either the student perspective or as a parent or a teacher, but you had the fortunate experience of being a person who serviced the school district, so to speak. Is that correct?
Yeah. So thankfully, it was very serendipitous, but my 2 undergraduate internships were in WISD and my 2 master's level internships. The reason why it was broken up like that is because I did do part-time. I had babies. They're now Waco ISD students, pre-K 3 and kinder.
All right.
And so I did part-time college, right? And so I got 4 different internship experiences. And so the first one was in the ACE after school program, 21st century after school. In the grant management office, learning kind of like the macro side of it, and then getting to go onto campuses and work one-on-one with kids. That was a joy. And then I was in the homeless liaison office with Cheryl Pooler, and really saw the side of youth homelessness that no one really sees unless you're in that office. And so learned about youth homelessness, what our families and kiddos are going through, what defines homelessness, which is surprising. And then my next internship was in the BEAR project, which is where the interns go out and teach kiddos and even teachers and parents social emotional skills like self-regulation, kind of like breathing practices, communication. And my job at the BEAR project as the community practice intern was to go out in the community, and which is interesting. It kind of leads up to where I'm at now with this whole process. But my job was to go out in the community and say, how can Baylor be a good partner with Waco ISD, but also how can Waco ISD regain trust with the school district, with the parents and the community? And that meant that I needed to do some research. And I was like, what are we doing? What has happened that Waco ISD wants to learn how to regain trust? So I dug in a little bit, did some interviews with community leaders, and found out that we had a history, some schools that had been shut down, like A.J. Moore Academy. That was really hurtful. People didn't understand why, and really some people felt like that was targeted and unnecessary, and just other things that had been said by board members. Yeah.
Well, like I said, I had the fortunate opportunity to work for the school district 8 years.
IT,
I worked
right?
in their IT department, and it was a very interesting experience for me because I got to see the innovation that was happening in the school district. I was also took part in building the technology infrastructure for the district. So there were people in place at that time that were very committed to making sure the kids had the best technology in the classroom. And so it was a great time. The early 2000s was a great time. We had great principals such as Dr. Bishop, who was over A.J. Moore. She was innovative and creative. She was an amazing educator. And so I got to see a lot of growth in our school district. However, unfortunately, as my tenure was coming to an end, I was exposed to some of the aspects of education that just didn't sit well with me, in that rather than engage the parents and make the education benefit the students and on and so forth, they became just another servicing agency to an already marginalized and underserved group of people. So they didn't give the parents a voice. They often what I would consider over-disciplined
Very punitive, penal.
students. and it became a district. And I went to your campaign event yesterday and kind of spoke about this. It became a district where there were two school districts. There was one for the affluent families in our community who wanted their children to have access to programs and advanced programs that were the best that McLennan County had to offer. And then there was this other school district that was underserviced and in a lot of ways taken advantage of, and it was a misfortunate situation because I think parents who are affluent, who can afford those type of they can do things to supplement the educational process outside of school and at home, whereas kids who come from very what do you want to say, low income or socioeconomic disadvantage, whatever you want to say, I thought we need to invest more money into those programs that enrich the entire educational process.
Absolutely.
That gives them an opportunity to when you talk about the capital of Texas, right, and you tell them where the capital is and you show them on a map, but how about if each and every kid got a chance to go on a field trip to see the capital, to see Austin for the first time? Those are the kind of experiences that I can surely tell you, if a kid gets to visit Austin, Texas and get exposed to the capital, when it appears on a test, a standardized test,
they'll remember it.
they will remember Austin, Texas. Again, those are the kind of things that I wish education was about nowadays, and it's so much of education is about mastering the standardized test, which I truly understand why, because that's how teachers, administrators, school boards are looked at as achievers if they do well on that.
Yeah.
And so just kind of tell me, how do you feel about the standardized testing that's
goodness.
going on in our state or our nation, so to speak?
So I mentioned yesterday that I would be one of those board members who, as much as is within my ability, I don't know what the regulations are yet on board members as far as lobbying or doing legislative visits at the Capitol, but as much as I am able to within those means, I want to go to the Capitol and say, hey, I'm a board member in McLennan County in Waco, ISD, and this is how we see it affecting our kids, and this is what I think is a better option and better way of evaluating if they're learning is not through standardized testing. And so I think one frustration I have, even as the director of the Waco Immigrants Alliance, is that we have a lot of people in our community that care, but that doesn't go far enough. You have to do ledge visits. You have to write your representative or call them. You have to vote. It's not enough to feel sorry for someone or to care about it or to stay frustrated. I mean, you have to make your voice heard, because what our representatives are saying is whenever I've contacted them on issues such as immigration or criminal justice or anything, they say, well, we don't really hear from people like you. You're not the majority of who we're hearing from. And, that's who they're pandering to when it comes to re-elections. And so if people get involved in that process and they hold the leaders accountable saying, hey, we're voters, people from this community go visit and say, we're watching you and we're holding you accountable. Our kids' lives and their futures, the future of the city depends on it. I think they're just not hearing from our voices, these dissenting voices enough. They're just hearing from top down, like you said, the affluent, those with influence and power and money. Are kind of controlling everything, even from the top down. Betsy DeVos, the Department of Education, someone who never should have been appointed to that position. And so you do have an all-out assault right now nationally on public education, and it's happening here.
What I didn't realize in our right here in the state of Texas, as well as proud as we are as a state of how big our economy is, how well we're doing as a state, where we rank in the world as an economy, that over the past 10 years, there has been a reduction in the investment that our state makes in education.
They'd rather invest in prisons.
And
that's a shame. We base, they build prisons based on third grade reading levels. You shouldn't build prisons. You should start investing more in the kids who can't read yet.
And that's amazing. So it gives me the impression that all of this education is important. education is the great equalizer in society. Gives people the opportunity to transcend their own circumstances, so on and so forth. All these great things that education does for communities and families, and our country. As a nation or as a state, we've taken the position that we're going to reduce the amount of funding that we're going to invest in education. So where we all agree that it's the great equalizer, we're going to reduce the amount of support to give people, which when you reduce the dollar, I'm just going to tell you this, people. This is just what it is. When you reduce the funding for education, what you're simply saying is that I'm going to reduce the number of opportunities that are out there for people who want to get that education. You're simply reducing the amount of opportunities that are out there.
And creating more roadblocks, more hurdles,
Absolutely.
more challenges.
Absolutely. So therefore, where it should be open, a great education should be open to everyone. It will now be open to the very select and very few, which in a lot of cases is going back to a day not so long ago.
Right. It's like a filter. It's a survival of the fittest mentality. It's like creating a caste system here. Where they're trying to create a grunt worker type level of people who never finish out with high school. And then those are either the people that are going to be in your prisons making money for private prison companies that then fund our legislators. Or you're going to be the low level retail, food service, hotel service type work. Because there's a lot of people in our country, not a lot actually, it's like the few, who are interested in maintaining that power structure, those power dynamics, because it's what's kept them and their family generationally on top since the beginning of this country.
Well, it's simply about keeping, they can justify suppressing wages by maintaining a certain, what they consider low-level skilled workforce, which I don't believe in that. I believe that if you have a job and you work 40 hours, it's obviously very important if they're going to have you doing it 40 hours a week. And obviously, if you're going to do that job, you should be whatever it pays should enable you to take care of your family. I don't go with the thought of entry-level positions and stuff like that. Now, of course, the entry-level position shouldn't get paid much as the CEO, but if the CEO is paid a livable wage, I don't see why someone at the entry-level position can't be paid a livable wage just at a lower level.
Right.
And so
absolutely. So we're seeing that overall attitude about certain people being worth less than others. We're seeing that happening in our schools. Our kids are worth it. I think I heard what Keith said about him, the time he spent in the schools and seeing how many great kids we have, how many students with so much potential. Likewise, the time that I've spent in the schools, whether it's been in Waco ISD, Cy-Fair ISD, no matter where it's been, where I've lived, I substituted in Waco ISD. So substitutes get the worst of kids, we know how we treated substitutes, right? So I substituted, my sibling currently substitutes in Waco ISD. It's kind of like we were built for this. We I don't know if we're like gluttons for punishment or what, but when we come into contact with kids that are struggling, I think we can see a little bit of ourselves in them. And so
Absolutely.
we can empathize, and kids real knows real. And so the kiddos in the schools, they let down their guard and they share things with you that they might not feel safe sharing with everybody else. And so in those experiences, realizing that the same hurts and struggles and everything that I went through as a kid, some of these kids are going through 10 times worse, and they don't have the supports, the mental health resources, the access that I had, or that even as an adult that I now can access. Some of our parents and kiddos don't even know where to access those resources. And honestly, it's challenging when your parents are working 2-3 jobs to take you to a counselor after school to talk about something that happened to you years ago that is still haunting you, that's still making you angry, that's still making you feel hopeless and worthless. So how is a kid going to make good choices when they're dealing with so much going on in their head? And so we need mental health access on campuses. We need a seamless integration of we have partners in this community who want to bring mental health services onto campuses, but we don't have a culture on our board that appreciates that.
Well, that's one of the things that I am a big fan of, and it's you spoke about it just a minute ago about creating what I would consider. I heard this term mentioned, I would like to give credit to who said it, but they use the term wraparound services.
Yep, that's been a
Whereas you're not only going to get an education, but you're going to get some health care if you need it, some vision if you need glasses. I want to applaud the school board and the school Transformation Waco.
Transformation Waco is doing an excellent job.
Yes, for providing eye exams for kids in WISD.
Yeah.
And so that's a tremendous service that they're going to provide. And those are the kind of services that kids need, because if you come from an economically disadvantaged family, I don't know where glasses are on the priority list, but I know not seeing affects your ability to learn.
Right.
Being a kid that liked to sit in the back of the room but didn't have the eyesight that justified that. Luckily, it was identified very early in my education with programs like Head Start and things like that. When I was growing up, they identified I had a sight deficiency. Not only did I get glasses, but then my teacher started to set me in the front of the classroom, which made so that way I could see whether I brought remember to bring my glasses or not. But I just want to say, you're listening to The Word According to Rocky. I'm your host, Rocky Miller. I'm here with Hope Balfa-Mustakim.
Yep.
Mustakim.
You got it.
Yes. I'm going to get
it's
it
a mouthful.
right. Yeah. And we're here talking about her run for Waco ISD School Board Trustee, place 7.
Yeah,
I want to kind of clear this up. I had Keith on a couple weeks ago, and I want to let everybody know these are both at large positions. However, they're not running against one another. You can vote for both candidates on your ballot if you live in Waco. You can vote for both Keith and also Hope.
Yeah, he's running for position 6, and I'm running for position 7. So we have 7 positions. You have 5 of those that are district positions. Like Ilda Sabito is running in District 3, which is South Waco. So you can vote for her if you live in South Waco, and you can vote for me and Keith because that's 6 and 7. And so you don't have to be a parent. As long as you are in this Waco, the ISD, which you can even find a map online. You just Google it, Waco ISD attendance zones or school maps. As long as you live in the city and you're voting in city elections or you can vote for us. And if you've never voted before, now is the time. I heard you mention on one of your previous shows about how they're talking about closing some schools. And,
Absolutely.
And it sounds a little bit more than hypothetical.
Well, I mean, so let me kind of tell you what happened. I was at a forum, or I guess you could say a town hall that the new superintendent brought up that she had attended. And someone asked, I don't even know if someone asked her about closing schools, but there was a hypothetical situation brought up, and she, very coherently put together a hypothetical situation which seemed like a very well thought out idea.
Very real possibility. Very real possibility.
Of about closing a school, closing Carver, and making it a pre-K,
like early childhood.
Early childhood,
education.
which alerted me that if you close the middle school that serves East Waco, then now we're busing kids across town because all the middle schools currently are not near East Waco, and so that put me in that gave me, and I later on was able to submit a question and asked her, if she does close Carver, would she commit to building another middle school in East Waco? And she answered that question by just saying it was the closing of Carver was hypothetical. So,
we're not going to think that far in advance.
Yeah. So that gave that gave me pause. And so about this election that's coming up, there's so much at stake. Dr. Kincannon, I'm sure she's a very nice lady, and I'm sure that she did a great job for Belton for what they needed. But I had concerns that she had not had a history of working with diverse student populations, which she hadn't, and that she would kind of maybe be insensitive to their needs, are completely
Or just like not aware,
are
or
not
not
aw-
attuned to it. You
not
know?
aware of the challenges
Well,
that they face each and every day. And so, uh,
yeah.
y-
Me too. I mean, you have to come from a place, first of all, and I think this is what is advantageous about me and my work that I do and the education that I gained even outside of my schooling. I was raised up in the last 10 years in the immigrant rights movement. And so my work overlaps with criminal justice reform. And overall, my job is help being part of the work that decriminalizes communities of color. Like, we see institutions that are just, it's become a crime just to be a person of color in general. And so in that work,
it didn't just become a crime.
no, not at all. Not at all. You're right. I think it's more pervasive. It's less overt and it's more hidden in our systems. A very strategic and structural racism this time.
Absolutely. But very systemic in nature, though.
Yeah, for
And-
sure. And knowing, you have to come from that awareness. Our board members should come from that awareness that our kiddos are dealing with generational trauma. And it's not just that they have bad parents who are traumatizing them. It's in your DNA. Whenever your grandparents, your great grandparents sustained trauma, that's passed down in your DNA. And so we have that. And then you have just the general day-to-day oppression, microaggressions, people making comments that you just kind of hold in. You don't feel like you can say anything, or you're seen as angry or aggressive, and so there's microaggressions. There's stuff that poverty, it's a very stressful situation whenever your parents, I mean, I heard conversations with my mom talking about food stamps, money. I heard her stressed every day talking about money. Money was always an issue, surviving. And so that creates stress and anxiety in a child. And that's not an indication of a bad parent. That's real life. That's the real life struggle. And I think whenever we have board members that don't come from that don't come from the trailer park or the hood or the whatever you want to call it, they don't understand that frame of mind, and they blame people in poverty for their own poverty.
Absolutely. I see that I see that on TV all the time. I use Twitter quite a bit, and so I see a lot of people that make general statements about people in poverty that have no earthly idea of what people in poverty go through, what their work ethic is like.
How hard they're trying.
The notion that people, I heard a politician once, I was in my mid-20s, say the reason why people are poor is because they're lazy. And my mother, who is absolutely, without a doubt, the hardest working person that I've ever known. Now, again, I'm biased. I'm completely biased about that because I got a chance up close and personal, watch her labor for her family, labor on her job, labor in her community. And so her economic situation had nothing to do with how hard she worked at all.
Absolutely.
It had everything to do with being born in 1936, having her mother and father pay taxes to a system that would not allow her to attend those higher educational institutions like the University of Texas, University of Texas Tech, Texas A&M. My mother was not allowed to attend those universities when she graduated high school in 1956. And so when you look at the systemic oppression that so many families exist under, I think it's quite foolish to say that a person is poor because they're lazy. It speaks to you as an individual how ignorant you are to what circumstances in our country that directly contributed to the poverty that people experience today. And so it's again,
that affects our education system. These are the children and families that so if you don't come from that frame of mind, if you don't have that awareness, how are you going to make the best decisions for the kids in Waco ISD? Like, it just doesn't make sense. If you're so far removed from that experience and that even that education, that awareness, if you're not hungry to learn more and more and more about these larger systemic issues and how it's affecting our city, then how are you going to know? I mean, you're going to want to shut down something like Transformation Waco because you don't understand what its purpose is. You're going to say this seems like, why are we investing in these kids? They're hopeless. They're a lost cause. We've had people say that people in leadership in our district saying they are the leftovers, that our kiddos are the leftovers, and that we're investing in a lost cause. They're hopeless. And I mean, I know with my name, it's funny, but I was like, I have hope for Waco ISD. I have hope for our kids. I don't believe anybody is, especially that age, is beyond help, or, they all have the capability. If you invest in them, they're going to make this city great. I mean, they are our future, and it's ridiculous for us to not realize that at this point, that this is investing in the future of Waco, unless there are people on our board who don't want the future of Waco to look like Waco looks today.
Well, I'll say this, Hope, and I mean I don't think this is by accident. I think that when people make statements like they want to give up on a kid, they are speaking merely out of their own notion that other people aren't worth the effort that people they were benefits of. Again, I want to bring up this point a lot of times as well, is that a lot of times that we have parents that were also traumatized by the educational system, the same educational system that their kids are being traumatized by, which creates a parent who is somewhat hostile to the educational process,
or apathetic,
or apathetic, may not understand, and so there has to be something in the system to instill a better relationship between parents and the school.
Schools are a hub of community life. The schools are not some institution that when you drop your kids off, they're that you don't get a say so in that you don't have any input. Your input is not wanted, not valued. That way of operating schools is not. It shouldn't be happening anywhere, but in Waco, our parent engagement should be top on the list. How is a child going to succeed without us being intentional about parent engagement, about partnership, community engagement, and about one topic, how about language access? How are you going to engage parents and the families that are Spanish speaking if there's not an intentional effort to do that, to where they can even speak with you?
Hope, we're in America.
Right?
We're in America.
25% of our kiddos.
We're in America. We speak English in America.
Well, we don't have a national language tracking.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
My bad.
we don't, right? Some people would wish it otherwise. But yeah, I mean, if we really want our kids and our district numbers to go up, or our parent engagement, student performance to go up, we have to be intentional about having more headsets, more translators, more high quality translations going home. Parent conferences need to be, there's bilingual access, whatever. Because when you have a 23% of our kids are ESL, English is their second language, their parents, you would think that there's either two languages or just Spanish being spoken in the home. You got to be intentional.
So this is always my question when people go, this is America, and we speak English in America. My question is, if that's the case, then why are we hiring people who don't speak English? Why would we have a significant workforce in the state of Texas that does not speak English?
Yeah.
I don't have any issue.
It's like we only value their body, their work, their labor.
That is
Bodies.
what I was getting to. We only value their bodies and their labor.
Output, their production.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We're not willing to invest in them as people or engage them as people. One of the great things, I had the opportunity to be in the military and travel and go places.
Yeah.
And it was always a welcoming gesture for wherever I was visiting for the people of that country to try to speak English to relate to me,
It's
and
kindness, it's compassion, it's hospitality.
Absolutely. I could be in Germany, I could be in Saudi Arabia, I could be anywhere in the world, and there would be Americans, there would be people of different countries attempting to speak English to relate to me, and I don't understand why we can't have that same level of compassion for other people in our country.
I mean, we look at the national landscape right now.
Absolutely, we could, because in a large part in Texas we depend on people who primarily speak Spanish to provide so many essential services in our communities and in our state. And so we have to get beyond the point of saying someone owes us something because we're America. What about
They're giving so much,
and they're
they're contributing so much,
absolutely,
economically too. But yeah, I value our parents in the district, and I think I have an awareness to the needs of our immigrant families and our Spanish speaking families and even our undocumented families, that the school district is not a place where you start playing politics and saying, well, we don't want to cater to them. We don't want to accommodate or assist them. We don't want to include them because, they weren't born here. Or maybe their immigration status fell out of status. They don't have their current papers right now. That's not a place, in the school district, we should be exemplifying, compassion, acceptance, it should be a place where every child has a right to an education, and recognizing that evidence shows us parent engagement is how you get those scores up. Parent engagement is how you help a child to learn, and it enriches the whole family.
I just think if a person is a resident of this country, there are certain rights that are due residents. Citizenship, I understand how that can be rather complex.
For sure.
And there are different concepts, centered around citizenship. But what a resident is, Hope, is a resident is somebody who has chose to live amongst the people of said community, country, state, whatever. And if a person volunteers to live amongst these people, they should be treated well.
Yeah.
They should be treated.
Hospitality is like a global value that we're lacking. So many religions, cultures, all over the world, even within our country. There's this common thread historically that different religions have all held, and it was hospitality. But it's, it's just a reflection of the political climate nationally that's trickling down to even in our own city. I would say that Waco, it's even the work that I do that's highly controversial, polarizing, or political. For me, it came from a place of faith and a place of that principle of welcome and hospitality and compassion, seeing people struggling who just wanted a better life, who the immigration process is virtually impossible and expensive, and you need 5 different attorneys, or you hire an attorney and they steal your money and never show up, which is a huge problem. It's bad. Like our community, it's the whole topic of immigration is impacting our students. And the reason why I bring it up is because it's so stigmatized in our area. And unlike, Houston, Dallas, Austin, where you have more of a community where you can talk about it more freely, here I'm seeing our kiddos going through their parents, or whether it's their dad, mom, uncle, whoever, being deported, and they just keep their mouth closed. They don't tell anyone. Sometimes they don't even speak to their school counselor about it. Their teachers don't even know that dad just disappeared last night because he got stopped and got deported. And I was like, we need to be sensitive to these cultural issues, because that child, how are they going to learn the next day in class when they just lost half of their identity of their life? So if we need to start being attentive, more culturally competent, aware, responsive, whatever you want to call it, to what's happening in our community, because we can't expect a kid to just jump inside this like cookie cutter box and sit down, junior, shut up and listen and learn and then test, when we're not paying attention to all their other needs, like wraparound services.
Absolutely. So we're going to get to the Waco School Board, because we could talk about so much in the realm.
It all crosses, it intersects with our students.
But I want to make sure that you're able to get your message out about the school board and what you want to do for our community on the school board. Right. So I'm just going to ask you, Hope, why are you running for school board?
I'll tell you why. So about a year ago, normally I'd be satisfied with being a community organizer, activist, whatever you want to call it. I'm really just a social worker who practices our ethical responsibility for social justice. We have an ethics. We have the core ethics, and one of them is social justice. So I'm just doing my job. But besides that, I would have been satisfied. However, I am a Waco ISD parent. And over the last year or so, I've seen what happened in response to, first of all, was hugely disheartened by how the situation with Dr. Nelson was handled. I saw our parents come out full force, communicating what they wanted and what they needed. And I saw the wonderful things he was doing in our community. And I just thought there was a better way that could have been handled. That could have been used as an opportunity for learning and growth. And maybe, whether it would have been a campaign to talk about, what lessons were learned. Right. So I just think there wasn't enough value. either people didn't value what he did, or that didn't
I,
matter.
I think here's the
By
situation.
people, I mean like leadership. You know?
Here's the situation. I thought how that went. He was doing a exceptional job, right? And he made a mistake that reflected badly on him, and by virtue of his position on the school district. And that was the case. However, there was enough because of the substance that he was caught with, and its situation in society right now.
In Texas, yeah,
You
versus
know,
Colorado or
Yeah,
something.
yeah. There was enough space for us to pull back and say, okay, this isn't horrible. It's bad,
Yeah.
but it isn't horrible. Let's be pragmatic about it, and let's stay on the course that we're on, that we
Consistency.
haven't been on
Yeah.
in years.
Yeah.
That this man has us on. Let's stay on the course so that we can do the best job for our kids.
Yeah,
And what I saw the school board do was acknowledge all of his achievements, and also in some cases try to take credit for many of the things that did not exist prior to him coming to the district, and then really gamble with our children's future to try to bring somebody else on that's going to attempt to do what he was already doing.
Right.
And so I was disheartened by
Yeah.
that.
So I saw that, and then I was like, oh, maybe they'll bring in someone similar. Maybe we'll have, someone who also maybe speaks Spanish. Well, that was awesome. Someone who has worked in these types of communities before.
If they had just stuck to the profile that they had during the recruiting of Dr. Nelson,
Yeah.
I would have accepted that. And whoever
Yeah.
we got with that particular
Yeah.
profile, I would have been able to accept.
Yeah.
But they totally deviated.
Well, and the whole process wasn't transparent. And like you said, I believe Dr. Kincannon is a very nice lady, a very nice woman. And I feel like she's had successes in her other districts, and there's nothing wrong about that. But I do think that the process was a little bit untransparent, and it was it almost like flipping a coin. It's like we're not only gonna leave behind, or cancel out. It's like cancel culture, right? We're canceling him out, but we're going to bring in someone who doesn't even seem similar to the cultural awareness or the lived experience that Dr. Nelson had. There was a lived experience. I mean, he was from Laredo. He understood that. He understood, being a black man in our culture. He understood that. He was sensitive to that. And you could see his policies were shaped by that awareness. And so with the new hiring, I was... And, I'm a white woman, so I understand that you can't.
Really?
You can't. Yes, I am.
No,
I'm
just joking.
Cajun, but I'm white, Caucasian. So you can't. And it's not to say like a white female is out of touch necessarily, but it's the fact that the background she hadn't worked in Laredo, she hadn't worked in Houston or Dallas or places like that. And so I was like, okay, well, that was for me as a parent. I was like, well, that's another thing. It was like losing Dr. Nelson, and then the process of bringing in someone, which if you read in the newspaper, someone who there was a conflict of interest there with certain board members. And I'm a truth teller, justice seeker. And for me to see this conflict of interest between, vacation homes being owned together, that relational.
And if you don't know, the conflict of interest is, and let's put it out there, because I want to be clear. This is all stuff you can look up, so you
was
don't.
in the newspaper.
You can Google. Our board president, Angela T. Kale, worked for Belton ISD as their general counsel. She was the lawyer for the school district for 10 years or more, right? Then the first opportunity she gets to hire the person that she worked for, right, in a district that she has no relevant experience in. She hires her friend who incidentally they have a business relationship with that exists here in Waco. So
Our
that
parents deserve more transparency, and that just felt like it was another blow to this trust that supposedly Waco ISD was trying to earn back from our community. So it just felt like another thing. And then whenever the appointments happened, 2 appointments happened last year of Robin Houston and Jose Vidania. And when I noticed that Miss Houston was our county juvenile prosecutor at the time, no longer she is, but she was the
Well, let's put that out there as well. Now, Miss Houston was released from her responsibility as a prosecutor.
And there was no disclosure.
There was no
conversation about
there
that.
was no disclosure about now. She had a public position. She worked for the state. She was released from her job. And when you use terms about release and stuff like that, what you're saying is there was a forced separation, is what you're saying. So she was fired, in other words, from her job, and no one knows why up to this
and
point.
she serves on our board.
And absolutely. And nobody in the newspaper hadn't asked her that question. The TV station hadn't asked her that question. No one has asked her the question, ma'am, why were you fired? There are many rumors in the community surrounding why she was fired. You know, however, none of this has been, I want to be responsible in the way that I present it. None of it has been validated. None of it has been confirmed. However, all of it points back to it being a issue of integrity or an issue of character. And if that's the case, if that's the reason why she was let go, she should not be serving on our school board if she has an issue of integrity or character.
Yeah, and just you can go back on my Facebook wall, a year ago when whenever the appointments happened for me working within the criminal justice immigration realm, when I saw a county juvenile prosecutor being appointed to that position, whenever I knew a lot of people, including Keith, who put their name in that hat, including myself, when I saw that prosecutor, I was like, okay, let's see if there's some type of comms plan, communication, market, something that's going to happen that's going to explain to parents why appointing someone who is prosecuting youth, why that's a good idea. So let's just see if they're going to there had to be some kind of messaging, around this is why we think but instead there was nothing said. Parents were not explained why we have a prosecutor prosecuting our youth on our school board. So if there's dots to be connected, please connect the dots for us. And it didn't happen. So for me, that was kind of the final.
Well, straw. I mean, in my opinion, I know why she was on there, because she was probably going to go along with whatever the board president went along with.
Yeah, we have.
She probably was on, and that's the same way. What's the gentleman's name?
Vidania, Mr. Vidania.
Mr. Vidania. The reason why he was on there because he was probably gonna go with anything.
We don't have people on the board right now. Too many people who are willing to challenge the leadership right now. Willing to.
Well, I don't even. For me, it's not really about challenging leadership.
Like when it's necessary.
It's about looking out for what is the best interest of the children. If you challenge leadership and you're not looking out for our kids,
for sure,
for our kids, that doesn't matter to me.
But how many times in this community does it require you to challenge leadership? Because structurally, this city, this county, that was not set up in a way that benefits black and brown kids or even poor whites, right? So you have this systemic structural setup. So when you're going to be defending people who are marginalized, it's going to require you to have that backbone, to have that passion, to have that fervor, that commitment that you will challenge, because otherwise it's going to be really hard to stand up for people that are marginalized whenever you are a yes man or a yes woman.
Absolutely. We have about 10 minutes left, but we have a question, Hope.
Okay.
All right. And it says, how would you ensure this is related to graduation rates. It says, how would you ensure we increase graduation rates?
That it all spirals back into why aren't kids going to school if they're not going, or why aren't they learning, or what's going on in the classroom. It's not enough to have a penal justice institution type set up in a school where we're punishing kids like we would do either in the military or in prison. It's what are we doing on campuses that is keeping them there, that makes them feel safe, loved, that they have all the resources they need, that they have, whether it's glasses or there's a counselor they can talk to. Some of our campuses don't have counselors, right? So do we have all the services that they need on campus to learn? Do they believe in their future? Do they believe that there's a point in coming to school day after day after day, or do they see that it's going to end them up in a dead end anyway? Or are they going to work, to support a family? So what is it? We need to be more attuned to why they aren't graduating. And I think whenever we engage the community as partners, and whenever we engage the parent as partners, and then whenever we have those resources that they need, to where they feel like they're ready and they're prepared and they're going to succeed. Kids don't stop going to school because they see it's because you don't see a point, you don't see a future, you don't have hope, that you stop going to school or you choose a different route. But if you can see, this is my pathway, this is my chances of succeeding, this is how I'm going to get there, and these are people that are supporting me, then you do it, you stick with it. Kids are resilient. We've seen kids go through some huge traumas that if you have just one person, one mentor, one teacher supporting you in your corner, and then you can see how your investment in your own education is going to pay off, you'll stick with it. It's not because our kids are hopeless, because they're not worth an investment, or because they're doomed to failure. They're not graduating because they're probably having a hard time learning in the classroom. Something about the setup isn't working for them. Something about what's going on in their own personal life isn't working. There are so many different symptoms.
So I completely agree with you. If a kid drops out of high school, hopefully they're not dropping out of middle school, but if they drop out of high school, right, there is something going on, and I know they always want to blame it on the kid is the problem. But if a kid doesn't feel that an education is important in high school or ninth grade or 10th grade or what have you, we're doing something wrong as a community and as a school district. If we're having that many kids drop out, we're doing something wrong, either in early childhood or so. We're not pressing upon kids in an effective manner that education is important, and we may not have the services to support that child through the learning process either, because there are economic reasons, there are so many different reasons why a kid may decide to drop out. It's whether or not they fit in or anything like that. I honestly am one of those kids that if it was not for my coaches and my teachers and my counselors, I had no shot at finishing high school.
Same. I had teachers calling me. I was asleep in my bed because I would work nights, right? I moved out of the house when I was 16 years old. And so I worked in retail and I worked late. And I had teachers who had my cell phone number. And they would call me and say, Hope, get to class right now. If you can make it by the end and you can take your test, I won't mark you absent. And so but it was relationship based. They knew my capabilities. They knew that all I needed was a little bit of grace, right? And they knew, like, we can't fail this girl. She's just got I was living on my own. I was 16. I was working. I was in high school. And that's the story for a lot of our kids. They have a non-traditional home setup. They have a non-traditional life. And so we need more. One thing I would commit to is finding it somewhere in the budget to at least have one social worker on every campus. For our school district, our 26 to 28% poverty rate in Waco, there's no reason that we don't have at least one social worker on every campus. And then ensuring that these kids, they not only have the resources, but they have the vision. Like, you can't tell a kid education's important without giving them that pathway of how it's actually going to happen for them.
We have a question. I don't mean to cut you off, but I want to address, we have a viewer that has a question. And it's from Andrew Sears. It says, why is it important that we develop students that are bilingual and biliterate?
Biliterate. So I'm assuming that means that they're literate in both languages or two languages. Yeah. I have never heard that term. Thanks, Andrew. But why if we look at it on a global scale, how many other countries where people speak multiple languages, not just two? That puts our kids would be competitive on a global market, right? As far as jobs, their opportunities in the future, whether it's military, vocational, whatever. But then in our country, if you don't speak at least, English and Spanish, that limits a lot of your job opportunities. And you get paid a little bit better than others whenever you do speak Spanish. You're just opening up more doors of opportunity for our kiddos.
So I guess the answer is it creates more opportunities by being bilingual.
Yeah, there's there's nothing negative about being bilingual, biliterate.
Okay, we have a comment from Daphne Latchison. She says, what are your thoughts on a newcomers center to support native speakers that struggle initially when entering the district?
That'd be amazing. It's worth it. It's worth the investment. And I think we would have people who would even volunteer for that. I think we have parents that would volunteer for that. Like I said, I view parents as an asset and a resource. And so I think we have parents that would help other parents transition into the district and learning, who do you, because they're from other Latin American countries, the culture around education is a little different. So they don't realize that they are wanted on campus and they are welcomed and it's free. And, from other countries, sometimes it is very hands off. And some countries, they even do like the school handles discipline and like corporal punishment and everything. So people are coming from all different places. So you have to help parents understand, hey, this is how our school district works. This is how you communicate with the principal or whoever, the AP. This is how, if you have a complaint, a concern, whatever, and we want you here. If you come, we're going to have Spanish language translations. We're going to have headsets. We're going to have people translating so you don't feel like you're sticking out like an oddball. You're wanted. You're welcome. Your input is valuable. And so I think that a hub, some kind of center like that, even if it's just an office, where we coordinate volunteers or have one staff person who operates that, I think that's a great idea because that would just make it more seamless for parents to know how to engage and teachers, I think, would appreciate that too.
So, and also, a newcomer center could do something probably that's much needed is bridge a lot of the cultural gaps that not only are that we have due to the language barrier, but just being new to the country.
Yeah,
so
or new to the city even.
Absolutely.
When we have new incoming students to go through that center, that would be excellent.
I have we have another question.
See, our solutions lie in our community. I'm telling you, this is awesome.
Andrew Sears asked, what are your feelings about Transformation Waco?
Oh, Transformation Waco. I've watched it as a parent, as a social worker in the area. I attended their annual wrap up where they told us everything they'd accomplished in a year. It was amazing. And I'm like, this is exactly what you want is those wraparound services. Dr. Nelson was so smart in creating a charter within a public school, right? So these schools that are struggling can come in the charter, and as soon as they are, get their foot leveled, they're ready to go. They can come out. They're not stuck in that.
This is the irony of Transformation Waco. And I guess maybe irony is not the good word, but Transformation Waco, it was built to save our schools.
Absolutely.
And now
why are we fighting?
And now those schools are going to ultimately, I think, save our communities. And so there's some irony in that dynamic.
Yeah.
And so everything that I've seen from Transformation Waco and what they've tried to implement, not only at the schools, in our communities, is absolutely amazing. And what we need is more Transformation Waco in our Waco Independent School District. That's what
more
we
of that
need.
Mentality that they possess, that mindset, that fervor, that passion, that commitment. Teachers, the type of support they're providing, and encouragement and coaching. Yeah, my closest friends are either mental health professionals or educators, and we have a high turnover rate in Waco ISD. 25% of our teachers every year. And so I'm like, that's a huge problem because that affects classroom too. And so I polled all my friends and said, listen, I have a best friend who teaches in Baltimore City public schools. And she grew up, she was, private schools her whole life, blonde hair, blue eye. And I'm like, how are you staying in Baltimore City for so long? How did they keep you? How did you not run? And she said, you know what? Administration is everything. She said, whenever our administrators are, calm, peaceful, energetic, like, you could tell if an administrator feels supported from the board, and if the administrator supports the team, the educators, the classroom, the teachers have the freedom to be creative. It's collaborative. There's a team environment, and the students benefit from that. And so our administrators need to feel supported. And I've seen that in Transformation Waco because attending their board meetings. And then for the school, it trickles down, and that's a positive form of trickle down.
I think. This is just my opinion. This is the world according to Rocky. I get to give it. So what I think is that when you have a teacher that comes from a community that is outside our community, and they get in the mindset of just servicing our kids and not become part of the community, it's easy to get up and leave and go somewhere else because basically at that point you're chasing a paycheck. Yeah. But if you build connections with people and kids and teachers
engagement,
and you really, regardless of what culture you come from, regardless of what race you are, and you really connect, it's hard to leave. Like I really understand what it means to have great leadership in WISD, and I stayed for a long time because I had great leadership. And then when I didn't have great leadership, I left.
Yeah.
So
Well, 'cause I mean, and I would never encourage a teacher to stay where to the point where it harms their own mental health and their own family dynamics and their own life. So we want to create school environments and campus culture that where the teacher is also thriving, where they have the supports they need from the district on down to be the creative, collaborative, imaginative teacher that no matter if they're getting paid 34 or 54,000 a year, that they are like, this is worth it because I'm seeing how my work is impacting my kids and I'm seeing how my kids have a future. But when you go to school, when you go to work every day and you feel like you're just another, cog in the wheel, whatever, it's like you're just there filling a role. It's just a test, and these kids, most of them are going to end up not finishing school. And like if there's this mentality that it's hopeless and our kids aren't worth it, the teachers feel that too. And it's really hard to come back to that job every day when there isn't this attitude of hope and positivity and investment going around the whole district.
Absolutely, I completely agree, and I thank you, Anderson, for your very kind comment. I appreciate it. Sometimes, thank you is all we need sometimes, and to keep pushing on a very difficult day.
Yeah.
And I appreciate your kind words. And so, Hope, we're gonna wrap up here in a second. But before we wrap up, we've talked about so much, and but I have to give you a chance to express things such as how can people donate to your campaign? How can they, if they want to be on the Hope train?
Yeah. Hope for Waco ISD, and not just me, but hope in general for our kids.
Where they can reach you and where they can find you on social media. And so you give it all to us.
Right.
And let us know where we can find it.
Sure. So I do have a Facebook page. It's Hope for Waco ISD. It's the whole long title, Board of Trustees, at-large position 7. But if you just type in my name, you'll probably see my personal page, but then you'll see the at-large. So click on that one.
I guarantee you, if you search Hope Balfa-Mustakim,
you'll find it. So there's that. So there's Instagram and Facebook. I have both of those pages. But the handle, if you want to do the @ sign, is Hope for Waco ISD. So
the number 4.
Waco ISD. So that's Facebook.com/Hope for Waco ISD. Instagram.com/Hope for Waco ISD. I set up an email just for this. So if you've got questions, concerns, comments, ideas, I believe the solutions lie in our community. And so you can email me at hopeforwacoisd@gmail.com. And then if you go to my website, there's a purple donate button. We need to get the word out. We need yard signs and we need literature, door hangers, whatever we can to communicate to people who don't normally vote, who feel their voice doesn't matter even if they vote. This election is in the history, and this position has come down to about 1,500 votes total. And so your voice absolutely does matter. And my opponent does have, generational affluence, influence, power. And so I need every voice, every vote to come out on that, load up the van, bring people on election day on May 2nd. Early voting is April 20th through 28th. That is important because usually whoever wins early voting wins it all. But I'm fine with people showing up on May 2nd. It's a Saturday. So, but if you want to go to the polls on that day, but yeah, I need some funds to support this campaign to get the word out to people who don't even know what's at stake here. Our schools are at stake. The future of our children's at stake. And what do we want Waco to look like in 10, 15, 20 years? And how do we support that vision?
Well, Hope, I want to thank you for coming on the podcast. It means a lot to me. It means a lot that you were willing to reach out and to whatever audience I have and talk to them about your experience, your history, introduce them who you are. It means a lot, and I think these kind of engagements give you an opportunity to share your message. And you have a great message. You have great ideas, and you have a much needed, your voices will be refreshing on the school board. Right. Unlike some of the voices we have now, we need something new. And here's the other deal, Hope. And this is something that current board members don't talk about much, but they have been stewards of this school district for the most part, under the entire decline. And I'll name Alan Sykes. The entire decline of WISD, he's been on the school board. Angela Tico, she's been on the school board during this decline. Your opponent, Mr. Dupuy, he's been on the school board during the entire decline.
His kids are graduating. So I'm like, you no longer have a vested interest in this. I do. I've got 14 more years in this game. I'm in it to win it. Like my brother Keith, he was all about that. I am. And also the whole idea of democracy, right? So I want our parents to choose who's on their school board because my opponent does not intend on staying the full term. There's this history where in Waco ISD where we've been appointing unelected people to our board, and I want whenever I found out that the intention was strategically to be elected
to win
and then to resign and then for them to appoint another friend, that is what did it in for me. I've watched what our district has gone through over the past year or so, and that sealed the deal. I was like, you know what? If not for anything else, I want our parents to have a choice and an option in this election.
And I want to take a moment before we go to speak to the people watching. So many times in our community, we complain about the decisions that people make, the choices that they make that don't benefit our children. On May 2nd, you'll be given the opportunity to change the face of WISD Board of Trustees. You have the opportunity to do it in one fell swoop. You can go with Ilda Sabito. You can vote for her. You can vote for Keith Guillory. And you can vote for Hope Balfa-Mustakim all at once and literally change the face of WISD, which I believe will change the fate of WISD. Because it's no longer okay to sit idly by and let other people decide what our kids deserve and what they need, what they're worthy of, and what they're worthy of. It's time for us, as a community, to say enough is enough, and we're going to stand up for our kids and their future. Well, that's what I could go on and on, but I'm going to get out of here. Hope, I've had a wonderful time talking with you. We had a great conversation. Again, the election is May 2nd. We can probably do this again.
Yeah. Early voting, April 20th through 28th.
We can do this again before the election.
Yeah.
And I just want to say much love.
Thank you, Rocky, for having me.